a couple minutes early as we're all joining the meeting. Go ahead and start with our standard operating norms. So if we could go ahead and move to the next slide. Today we are providing closed captions in both English and in Spanish. Those closed captions are available within Zoom and YouTube. Users can follow this link to view both English and Spanish captions in a separate browser window. We appreciate you joining today. We'd ask that if you are joining to please do so by either phone or computer, not both. And we do encourage our panelists to turn on their video. Please keep your audio on mute when not speaking. And if you have any technical difficulties, we just ask that you contact our program staff at 360-329-6744. How to access closed captions. At the bottom right, bottom middle of your screen, you should see a menu of options. If you can't see the menu, hover your mouse over the bottom middle of the screen, click the square CC icon towards the right side of the menu to toggle captions on. Click the sub-menu arrow to access more settings, including language, font size, and font color. We have ASL interpretation. This is an effort to center equity, and the interpreter is always visible. So please right-click their video and select Spotlight Video to make sure that you can see the interpreter. For those watching on YouTube, when we screen share, you will be able to see the slideshow, closed captioning, and the ASL interpreter. You will not be able to see the different people who are speaking, but you will be able to hear them. When we are in a conversation and discussion, we will take down the slides so that you have the opportunity to see the community advisory group interacting and engaging. Our public input instructions. There's an opportunity to provide brief public input later in the meeting. Typically, this happens around 5:45 p.m. Verbal public comment will be welcome in the Zoom webinar during this designated time with the option to turn on your web camera. We ask that you use the link located in the meeting description on the YouTube meeting page or on the IBR CAG meeting webpage. Commenters will not be allowed to share their screen and will be removed from the room once the public comment period concludes. To comment by phone, please dial 1-669-900-6833. Please enter meeting ID 993-5459-6043, passcode 674942. Dial *9 to raise your hand, and after you're invited to speak, dial *6 to unmute yourself. We will not be letting in members of the public before this designated meeting time around 5:45 p.m. this evening. All right, our meeting agenda today, we'll do a meeting overview, introductions and check-in, program update from Administrator Johnson. We will go through and do a snapshot of the draft supplemental environmental impact statement, and our key findings allow for some opportunities for questions and answers. And then we will dive into the community benefits advisory group recommendations, particularly focused on avoiding further harm. Our public comment is scheduled for about 5:45 tonight. We typically want to center our time together around a set of norms that we mention each time we gather, but it's important that we mention these again. First, at the top of our list is putting relationships first. We want to stay focused on our common goal, notice the power dynamics in the room, create a space for multiple truths and norms, practice being kind and brave, and examining racially biased systems and processes, and always look for learning. At this time, I'd like to introduce our co-chairs, Ed Washington and Lynn Valenter, for a welcome.
Ed, would you like to go first? You kind of seemed like you were chomping at the bit earlier. You're still on mute.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks for that. Uh, just like to welcome everybody here this evening. It's we're summer is drawing to a close, and the days are getting a little bit shorter and a little bit cooler. But it's always a pleasure to see all of you and really express our appreciation for your continued support and your input. And then I will just turn it over to Lynn if she has any words that she'd like to share with you. Lynn?
Thank you. It's exciting to see everybody, and we've passed a huge milestone. So I think we all just need to give ourselves a round of applause. So yay, team. And let's just say the program staff who did the heavy lift, but we're happy to kind of follow right along. So anyway, yay, team. Thank you all, especially those who've been with the group now for its multiple years, but it's great to see the participation today. We're going to do quick introductions, just name, organizational affiliation, and preferred pronouns. So if folks want to raise their hand, each new person can call on the next. And Sam already has his hand up, and oh, good, we are just popping. So Sam, if you would get us started and then call on our next colleague. Thanks.
Yeah, so my name is Sam Kim. I represent the community, although I'm currently working as a county administrator for Grace Harbor County. I've been on the CAG for 3 years. I feel like I've been with you forever. My pronouns are he, him, his. I like to call on Irina.
Okay, I'm Irina Phillips without voice today. I represent East European Coalition, Russian and Ukrainian speaking community on both sides of the river. And I use pronouns she, her. And I select Zachary Lauritsen.
Thank you, Irina. I hope your voice comes back soon. It sounds like you are ill. Zachary Lauritsen, and thanks for braving us when you're not feeling great. Zachary Lauritsen, he, him. I'm at Oregon Walks. We do pedestrian advocacy. And then I'll pass it on to Martha.
Sorry, you'd think I'd know this routine by now. But anyway, Martha Wiley, and I am a member at large with a focus on transit and paratransit and in Vancouver. And I am going to call on Julie next.
Hi, yeah, I'm Julie Jumbia, and I'm representing communities in the Northeast Portland area, and I use she, her pronouns. And I will call on John next.
Hi, John Wilson, he, him, and I work for Vancouver Clinic, and I have team members on both sides of the river, and I live on the Vancouver side. I'm here representing the healthcare side. And I will call on, looks like Tom Sandwar.
Hey, thank you. Tom Sandor here. Good evening, everybody. Capital Projects Manager for Clark College. He, him pronoun. Been with IBR CAG Group since 2021, so it's been a long time. Proud Oregonian, work in Washington, so kind of everyday commute back and forth. And that's my background. Let's see, who else is next? Right. Dina Horton.
Hi, I'm Dina Horton, the Deputy Director of Pacific Northwest Waterways Association, representing the river users and multimodal freight users. I've been on the CAG since the beginning, and so it's been great to see everybody and work on this project together. And I use she, her pronouns, and I will turn it over to Michaela.
Hi there, I am Michaela Williams, and I am an at-large community member representing the Washington side of the bridge. I guess, Trina, you're next.
Hi, Jarena Hatch, Mobility Manager in Clark County, Washington. I work for Community in Motion. Is there anybody left?
Yes, Robin Richardson is being shy. So Robin, do you mind doing an intro? You can run, but you can't hide. Thanks, Jarena.
Thank you, Lynn. Robin Richardson. I live in Vancouver, work in downtown Portland for Moda Health. I am an at-large member, and he, him are my pronouns. And I'll turn it over to Marcus.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. I just joined. I came late, but we're doing intros. So good to see you, Lynn. Good to see everybody. I'm Marcus Mundy. I'm with the Coalition of Communities of Color, he, him, his pronouns. And I don't know if there's a word for the day or what you're doing this summer, but I'm done. So thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. A nice punt, gracefully done. And I don't recall if I'm supposed to introduce Greg or Lisa, if you are.
I didn't want to put Jay Clark on the spot, but it looks like he just joined too. So if you want to do an intro, then we'd love to hear from you as well before we head over to our administrator.
Hi, Jay Clark with the Portland Metro Chamber. I am proudly part of the Government Affairs, Public Affairs team here. He, him pronouns, and apologies for being late. You can all take a wild guess why I was late. Traffic. But thank you. Good to be here.
Great to see you. All right. Well, this is the time where we get to hear from our administrator, Greg Johnson, on updates. So with that, we'll pull the slides back up, and it's great to see you, Greg.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Hey, Jay, someone needs to do something about all that doggone traffic out there. I was stuck in it this morning coming back from Tualatin. Anyway, once again, thank you everybody for joining us. This has been a lengthy slog, but as co-chair Lynn Valenter said, we have hit a significant milestone. On September 20th, we released our draft supplemental document, and it is currently on the streets, and we're going to talk more about that. But we have a 60-day public comment period that stretches from that release date of September 20th and concludes on November 18th. So we also are having virtual public briefings. We held one last night to get folks oriented to what this document is. So we've had 2 of those. And we're going to have a open house for our Section 106. And that's a different public comment period. That's October 18th through November 18th. So to comment on the public or on the Section 106 issues, which are related to cultural resources and historical resources in our program area. So last week we hosted the Oregon and Washington Transportation Commissions in our building. And the interesting and fun part was that they had the subcommittee that is looking at tolling. So they had a open public meeting, and folks were able to comment on the work that this group is doing on tolling for the program. So very good conversations, and you can probably find a link to that on our website if you are interested in hearing what the tolling discussion is rounding out. And they will have more meetings coming up that will be open to the public. We're doing a raft of presentations. Myself and a number of members of our team are talking to any and everybody. We want to get people oriented to the release of this document and how to interact with it. So we are out on the streets, out at fairs and festivals, and making sure that folks know that this document is out there, what it is, and so they can put their comments on the table to be considered. So next slide, please. So We do. This is, we think that robust public comments make projects better. So we want to hear from everyone in the community. And you guys, as part of the community advisory group, have a reach into your organizations and into your parts of the community that we're hoping you can amplify this message to get people to get on or to come to our public hearings or to get on our website and comment back to us. So once again, this is about our options so we can update our technical analysis for the final step in this National Environmental Policy Act process. So as you comment, they should be specific to the information for the draft SEIS. If you are straying on to other topics, we'll read it, but it will not be germane to what we are looking for comments. We're looking for comments on this document specifically. So when you share an opinion or a design option, provide information from that analysis that helped form the opinion. Do not send us a 50-page dissertation and tell us to read it, because we will not read it. Thank you. For a comment to be part of the formal record, it must be submitted in the official way. So getting on Facebook and carping about us, or getting on Facebook and telling us you love it, is not a public comment that will be part of the public record. So once again, we will have ways for you to submit documents and have documentation attached to that. Don't include hyperlinks to outside material or information. If you want to have your information considered, it should be included within the submitted comment. We also will take links with specific things that you are pointing to in a reference document. So this is the next bullet. Attachments to emails must be specifically referenced in the comment text, including specific citations to page numbers and passages from the attachments. Once again, we can't read an entire dissertation and interpret what you want us to know. All audio and video attachments must be transcribed or submitted via the draft supplemental impact environmental document via the voicemail line. So let's go to the next slide. So how do you find our document? The document is available now, and it's available to all the community members. We adhere to ADA standards. We have an online search function, so if you don't want to pour through the entire document, you can get online, type in a search word, and it will tell you everywhere in the document that word or phrase appears. We have an executive summary that is interpreted into multiple languages. So you can view the document by going to our website, interstatebridge.org, draft SEIS. And we also have hard copies. So if you want to visit us in our office at 500 Broadway in Vancouver, we have a document. You can sit and pour through that. We also have a tablet where you can access it from our office electronically. There's a copy at Vancouver City Hall, at the Vancouver Community Library, also at the Charles Jordan Community Center in Portland, and also the Portland building in downtown Portland. So I talked about the public briefings that we've had. We had one on October 1st and one yesterday where folks could interact. We've got a lot of questions that came in from those sessions that we answered in real time. So once again, we're trying to get this document out and let as many folks know how to access it and give comments. So next slide, please. So how do you comment? So you can submit a web-based form at www.interstatebridge.org, draft SEIS. You can email us a comment at draftseis@interstatebridge.org. If you are enamored with traditional mail, you can send us a letter. So it's to our office at 500 Broadway, Suite 200, Vancouver, Washington. And also you can call our office and leave a verbal comment. And that number is 866-IBR-SEIS or 427-7347. Or you can come at our in-person public hearings. And we will have 2 in-person public hearings and 2 virtual public hearings. So the in-person public hearings are next week, October 15th at Clark College. That's Geyser Hall, room 150. And that will run from 5:30 to 8:30. So it will be an open house. And we will also have a court reporter to record any comments you want to make for the record. The next public hearing will be at the Portland Expo Center, October 17th, 5:30 to 8:30. And once again, a court reporter will be there to take your comments. And it will be an open house format where we will have stations around the room for folks to go learn more about the project and then make a comment if you so choose. We also will be having virtual public hearings. So October 26th at noon, we will be hosting a virtual public hearing, and October 30th at 6 p.m. So we're trying to cover a range of times and give options for people. So if all of this, you want to know more about it, you can go to our website and access our calendar at interstatebridge.org calendar, and it will give you all of these things. So if English is not your native language, you can provide your comments in your native language, and they will be translated and transcribed into the public record. So this is how you can comment. So I think that was my last slide, and I'll take any questions or comments that folks may have. You're a quiet group tonight. Zachary.
I'll break the seal. Maybe the other people will have some questions. I had 2 questions. One was, I guess, some feedback and seeking some feedback is, I don't know if you all have started reading this, but it's a lot. And I think we're all kind of nerds about this stuff, and it's like thousands of pages and it's hard, right? And so one of the things that I've been hearing feedback from community members is they're like, this is just heavy. Like, I don't know enough technical stuff to make sense of it. I don't know. It's just like an overwhelming amount. And so I'm curious. And then to your point that you mentioned today, Greg, was like, you all expect folks to tie it to the SEIS, right? So like my comment is X about this section of the SEIS. And I'm curious if you all have any recommendations for how do we coach up folks who don't have a lot of time, that care about something, but they're not really sure where that is in the document, but they want to get their voice heard. How do they share that without us saying, well, you got to read these 27 pages or this 150 pages? You know, do you see the question is? I'm just having a hard time navigating that with folks.
Understood. So I think the search function for the electronically accessible documents are probably the best way. So if you're interested in the active transportation, you put active transportation in the search function and it'll tell you where, and you can read those sections or those pieces of the document that speak to that. It's a lot of reading, and traditionally you will see 30 to 45 days. That's why we made this a 60-day public comment period, to give folks more time to dive into this, digest it, and comment back to us. So we're hoping if folks want to come into our office, we have office hours that they can access us and come in and sit down and walk through that document. And I know for some folks that's not a realistic thing, but we do offer that as well, where we can sit down and walk them through their points of interest. They can call us and we will try and do that same thing. So our office hours are both in person and virtual to address those type of concerns.
So, like, for example, one of the things I've heard from folks in the pedestrian realm is they're concerned about the height of the bridge and being able to access it with just high, right? And do they need to say, like, on page 372, it says this height, and therefore, or can they just say, my understanding is the bridge is pretty darn tall, and it's just going to be hard for me to get up there on the corkscrew ramps, and I'm just concerned that that means that it'll be a barrier, and I won't be able to use it as a entry point. Is that good enough just to say that, or do they need to literally say, like, on 372 lines?
No.
I guess that, you know what I'm saying? Okay.
They do not have to reference a specific citation. If they have a concern about the bridge height and cycling, we will have an answer. And this is not going to be this 9-story spiral. We're looking at elongated switchback ramps that will be at ADA grade, ADA accommodated grades for folks to travel up. So that the team is looking and working with the bike committees in both states to make sure that we have something that's accessible. But that type of question, you don't have to have a specific citation to it.
Okay. And then a second question, you mentioned tolling there, which is, if people have concerns about tolling, the impact on their use and movement and all that kind of stuff, is this a time to comment on that, or is there another space and time for people to have that comment? Because I know it's just very small references in the SCIS, but it's a huge topic, right? And so I just want to make sure we aren't giving people like false understanding of something. Okay.
So people
The dog
can
says
comment.
hello. Yeah. Thank you.
What is he chasing a dog around?
My dog just went crazy. I'm sorry about that. Tolling question. I'm sorry.
No, we love dogs, so. But they can comment on tolling on this program about their concerns about it, and we will address it. But the most appropriate place is to tie into the subcommittee work that's being done, because they are going to set the policies, the rates, and any other exemptions, low income exemptions. So taking that issue directly to that subcommittee, and we have links to their next meetings on our website.
Okay. Thank you for those answers. Those are helpful for guidance.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns?
Looks like a quiet group.
Well, Lisa, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. Thanks, Greg. We'll pull the slides back up again. All right. We have a snapshot of the draft supplemental environmental impact statement. I think this will also help in terms of navigating this document that is incredibly lengthy and has a lot of really good information in it. And so today we have several members of our team that are going to go through this next section. We're going to go ahead and get started with, looks like, sorry, I just have the team, the IBR team. So maybe
It's
I will.
me, surprise.
Okay, I thought so. And I was like, what is it? Okay, go ahead, Hannah.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Greg. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being with us this evening. We really appreciate your time. So, as Lisa said, we are here tonight to give a snapshot of the draft SEIS findings. So we know we didn't have a lot of time and we wanted to use your time wisely. So we sent out a survey and you guys told us what you thought. So we really appreciate the engagement on that survey. We had 13 responses from CAG members, and these were the top selected topics. So transportation findings, we had 92% of respondents selected that. So tonight we're going to talk about transportation congestion, safety, vehicle and transit travel times and volumes. Navigation was also popular. That was at 46%. We're not including that tonight, but we are going to follow up in an email. And the 2 briefings that Greg mentioned, they are recorded, including all the questions from the community. So we're going to include a timestamp. So if you don't want to watch the whole thing, you can go straight to navigation. So we'll include that in a follow-up email for you. It's on our website. You can see the recordings of the briefings if you go to the calendar, and then you can either select October 1st or October 9th. You could watch both of them. It's the same information. Different questions, though. We're also going to talk about community findings tonight. We heard you want to hear about economics, 61%, equity, also 61%. We're also going to touch on environmental findings, climate change, 69%, and ecosystems, 61%. Okay, so thank you again for participating in that survey. We appreciate that. Let's get to the next slide. Before we dig into the findings, we want to close the loop on some questions that we got from our September meeting. So one question that we got was really around engagement, what we're doing for this comment period, and how what are our goals? How are we measuring success for this? So I wanted to take a minute for us to think back to our August meeting. We shared our community engagement plan for the comment period, and we went over our goals, different audiences, and then tactics that we're using. But we didn't really do a deep dive into audiences. So I'm bringing a little bit more information here. It's a lot of information. So what the team has done is we have put together a PowerPoint that we PDF'd of basically merging the community engagement plan, and then we did a deeper dive into the different audiences, identifying different community organizations and interested parties that we have been reaching out to before, during, and we plan to do it after the comment period. And then also including a list of briefings of where we've been and where we're going. It by no means is absolutely everything we're doing. So I also want to offer that I will be offering anyone who wants to dive in deeper or has questions. I think it's probably best for let's have a meeting and let's spend some time looking through all this stuff. So that said, keep an eye out for that email with the detailed list. But here is just a summary of some of the things that you're going to see. So around 117 community partners, 17 mini grant recipients. Those are community-based organizations that have partnered with the project to really help expand our reach in the community. Either helping with sharing notifications or participating, hosting, and listening sessions. Also reaching out to neighborhood associations on both sides of the river, and then an interested parties list of many different groups that we have been reaching out to, and you'll also see have been providing briefings and have some briefings signed up to still do before the end of the comment period. May I get the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so this is a big effort. We have a lot of folks to reach, and as Zachary mentioned, it's a lot of information that's out there. So let's talk about how we're staying focused in this. we're really out there to get the information out there. We want to make sure people know that this is going on, know where to get the information, how to find the draft document, how to comment, how to ask questions. So that is a huge part of our engagement goal and things that we want to achieve. We're really looking, we're not going to be able to do this alone. We need a team. We need your help. We need the help of our partner agencies. So another objective is to really ask for that help and those partnerships. So really collaborating with our partners, regional agencies, expanding that reach with local organizations, elected officials to really, this is a regional project. So we need to go beyond just our team. Greg, I saw you come on video. Do you want to say something?
No, I just had to step away, so I just
sorry about that.
So I'm good.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. I'm still new to the team. May I get the next slide, please? I think we have a couple more objectives here. And then also thinking about not just getting information out, but also engagement. How we're doing things. Are we giving people an opportunity to really interact with the materials? So we are also thinking about the different tactics that we're using to really meaningfully engage our underserved and equity-focused communities. I actually, this evening, I'm actually leaving early at 5:30 to participate in a briefing with our community engagement liaisons. They're a big part of our engagement to really help us expand our reach with our in-language outreach so that we are making information accessible in communities in the language that they speak and bringing the information alive from off the fact sheet and off the webpage. So these are some of our objectives to keep us grounded in the work. I have one more slide kind of looking at some metrics that we're able to measure. Great. So some things that we'll be looking at, we have surveys that we use when we are out and about at different events, asking people about the information. Were they satisfied? Were they able to get what they need? Was the information accessible? Many other questions that really help us evaluate this work, and we will be doing an evaluation. We'll be asking you how we did. So it's a lot of work, but it's important to look at what you did. We'll also be looking at metrics at our views at the website, and also looking at social media too, to see from a communication stance how good of a job we did getting information out and then kind of seeing that engagement. I have one more slide. Great. In addition to questions that we got in September about, what are you doing? Who are you reaching out to? How are you knowing if you do a good job or not? Which are really good questions, really hard questions. We also got a question about can we share public comments as they come in? So we sent this response in an email, but want to make sure we're doing a good job answering the question. Sometimes people miss an email. So the short answer is we're not able to share public comments as they come in. There are a few reasons why we can't do that. I would say, just logistically, but the biggest reason is that we really are looking to not put our own interpretation on findings. So we're really looking for people to go to the document and to read it for themselves and to make their own comments. We don't really want to influence them, but I understand that it's important, it's helpful to hear, to get a pulse on what's important, what you're hearing in the community. So there are ways that you can do that, even though we aren't sharing public comments live as they come in. There are ways that you can hear what other people are thinking, reacting to the project and the documents. So I want to steer you towards those. I already mentioned them, but if you didn't attend the virtual briefings and listen to the question and answer sessions, they are recorded and they're on our website. So that's one way you could get a pulse of what people are saying and thinking. What they like, what they don't like. Another thing that you could do is you could come to our open houses. Next week's going to be a big week for the program. So we'll have an open house in Vancouver. It's going to be Tuesday, October 15th. It's at Clark College from 5:30 in the evening till 8:30. Come say hello, and you can hear directly, you'll hear what people are saying. Also, we'll have one in Portland. So that will be on Thursday, October 17th, 5:30 to 8:30, and that's at the Expo Center. Other opportunities are our virtual hearings. If you don't want to come in person and listen next week, you could attend the virtual hearings. So we have one on October 26th. That's a Saturday from 12 to 1:30. And then we have another one on October 30th. That's a Wednesday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. So those are two options. And then in addition, during the comment period to listening either at these virtual public hearings or the open houses or going back and watching the videos of the public briefings, we will be sharing an interim comment summary in early 2025. So that'll give you a flavor of, what we heard from folks. It won't have our responses to it, but that'll be a flavoring of what we heard. And then, of course, we'll be responding to all public comments in the final SEIS, and that will include our program's responses. So that's it from me. I'm going to pause here to see if there's any questions. Thanks, Lisa.
Doesn't look like there's any questions.
You're letting me off easy tonight. Okay. You know where I am. And also you will be seeing that email that has, that deeper dive into the lists of audiences that you requested last month. Thank you.
Thanks, Hannah. All right, transportation is up. So Ryan is here again to talk with us a bit about the transportation findings.
Perfect. Hello, Ryan LaProuse, Transportation Planning Lead for the program. I'm here going to cover transportation findings in the draft SCIS. There's about 8 slides that I have that I will kind of cover for us tonight. So let's go to the next slide. And each of these slides, they're going to have some information on them. And then on the bottom of each slide has kind of additional where you can find that information in either the draft SCIS or sometimes in the transportation tech report. So those we have that information right there for you. So starting off, I'm going to start off with existing safety conditions. There was almost 1,800 crashes that occurred over the 5-year period from 2015 to 2019 on I-5 at the ramps and the ramp intersections within the IVR study area. There was, during that 5-year period, there were 7 fatal crashes and 17 serious injury crashes. And the causes of the majority of these crashes were short merging, diverging, and weaving areas, limited shoulders, congestion, and bridge lifts all contributed to these high crashes that we had in the program area. Next slide. Next, I'm going to talk about kind of the expected outcome. So all of our future analysis looks out at a 2045 time period. So it's out into the future. So the no build is expected to increase crashes by about 28% over current conditions. And the modified LPA with 1 auxiliary lane or the modified LPA with 2 auxiliary lanes, those are different design options. We didn't really go through those in advance of my presentation, but that's in the documentation, explains what's in the MLPA, and then there's design options, so the second aux lane. Either of those options will reduce crashes by about 13 to 17% compared to the no build condition. And the main reasons why those are being reduced is the auxiliary lanes, collector distributor, roadways, interchange, and ramp improvements, as well as lane widths and full shoulders that are planned as part of the IBR program. Next slide. Next, I'm going to talk about average daily person trips on the I-5 Columbia River bridges. So this graphic shows each of those, how many people are crossing the Columbia River by individual modes. So it covers vehicles, freight, transit, and active transportation. You can kind of see different bubbles for each of those. And we have the information for existing conditions, 2045 no build, and then the 2045 MLPA with one auxiliary lane or two auxiliary lane kind of design option in here. And as you can see at the bottom there, we're talking about total person throughput. The no build is increasing by about 30% over the 2019 existing conditions in person throughput across the river. And the modified LPA with one aux lane or two aux lanes will increase that another 4% by 2045 compared to the no build condition. And the main reason why there's an increase in person throughput is the active transportation and transit modes, as well as the variable rate tolling that is planned as part of the program. Next slide. Next, I'm going to talk about vehicles crossing the I-5 Columbia River bridges. So in existing conditions in 2019, there's about 143,000 vehicles that crossed on an average weekday. An average weekday is your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. Those are the typical average conditions. Mondays and Fridays are a little bit different. So we typically use average weekday for comparison purposes. So existing conditions has 143,000. The no build condition will increase by about 26% to 180,000 average weekday vehicles in 2045 for the no build. And then the modified LPA is a slight reduction to bound about 175,000, which is a 3% reduction compared to the no build. And again, this is due to the active transportation, the transit improvements, including the LRT extension and the express bus, and the variable rate tolling that is planned as part of the program. Next slide. Next, I'm going to cover travel times for vehicles. So the travel times we are comparing here. So is the kind of the travel time is the trip that we're summarizing is from the I-5, I-205 split near Salmon Creek in kind of North Vancouver down to the I-5, I-405 interchange in North Portland. So these numbers, we are summarizing them over 4-hour peak periods, but they're the 2-hour average, the peak of the peak, if you can imagine that. So the critical time periods are shown here. The southbound AM is the boxes on the left in orange, and the northbound PM are the boxes on the right. They're kind of in the dark blue. So in both time periods, we're going to reduce kind of the modified LPA with either one aux or two aux will reduce the travel time compared to the no build condition. So the decrease in the southbound, let's talk about southbound first. So the southbound travel times will reduce by about 7% or about 4 minutes compared to the no build in 2045 of 58 minutes for that travel time pair. And then the MLPA one aux or two aux reduces to 54 or 50 minutes for that origin and destination pair. There will still be a bottleneck south of the program area in kind of the southbound direction with that. So it kind of limits the amount or dampens that travel time improvement in the southbound that is kind of south of our program area. The northbound travel time during the PM peak period is going to be reduced from 42 minutes in the no build to about 26 minutes with the modified LPA with one auxiliary lane, or down to 14 minutes with the modified LPA with two auxiliary lanes. So this is a 40 to 67% reduction in that travel time for the northbound PM peak. Next slide. Next, I'm going to talk about the hours of daily congestion at the I-5 Columbia River Bridge. So hours of congestion is kind of when you have speeds below 45 miles an hour. So today's condition in 2019 as a baseline, we have about 10 hours of congestion at the bridge. Southbound, it's 3 hours in the morning, and then northbound, it's about 7 hours. That kind of goes from just early afternoon until late into the evening, kind of northbound condition. So this map is, or this graphic here is showing the future 2045 condition. So for the no build, southbound congestion is predicted to be 16 hours, starting at 5 a.m. and going all the way till 9 p.m. And then the northbound congestion is forecast to go lasts 14 hours, starting at 7 a.m. and going all the way till 9 p.m. So the combined total of those is 30 hours for the no build condition. We'll have congestion at the bridge. Next, let's talk about the MLPA, 1aux and 2aux. We'll start with the modified LPA. So in the southbound direction, the bottleneck of the Columbia Bridge will be reduced with the modified LPA to about 4.5 to 4.75 hours if it's the one auxiliary lane or the two auxiliary lane at the bridge. This reduction is, again, due to the program improvements, as including the transit, active transportation, the lane interchange improvements, auxiliary lanes, CDs, and variable rate tolling. In the northbound direction, the bottleneck of the Columbia Bridge will be reduced from 14 hours the no build down to about 9 hours with the one auxiliary lane and 6 hours with the two auxiliary lane. I'll stop here. Looks like there's a question from Zach.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yep.
Could you just talk a little bit about why the impact on southbound would be so much greater than on northbound and the 1 and 2 build options? I'm thinking it's the same tolling impact, it's the same additional lanes, it's the same additional transit. Why is it that there's a 4x impact, for example, on southbound, but only not even a halving on northbound, for example, on the 1 lane?
So the big deal is the kind of peaking characteristics. So the southbound peak is a little more focused. Usually people have to get to school or work at a specific time. So it's a little tighter peak is what's usually kind of occurring. And then you also are dealing with the midday kind of truck kind of starting into your transition. Then the afternoon, you have kind of school peak, you have work peak, you have kind of after school activities, sports peaks for kids and parents. So it lasts a little longer kind of in general. So you're getting the isolated and focused improvement at the bridge, kind of reducing that southbound focus. And again, the bridge, there's multiple bottlenecks. If you read the document, we kind of cover there's multiple bottlenecks in our corridor, kind of southbound. There's ones at the bridge, there's one at the I-5, I-405 split, and there's one at the Rose Quarter that kind of exists today in the southbound direction, and then the northbound direction in our program area, the main bottleneck is at the bridge. That's kind of our major constraint. So it's kind of limiting the flow that can get through that point. So that's what's limiting these improvements. I was going to point out one more factor real quick, and then I'll come to you, Sam, here in 1 second. So the other thing with the northbound is the MLPA with 1aux is forecast to improve from 14 hours to 9 hours to be mostly in the afternoon. So instead of that all-day period that the no build condition was getting. But with the MLPA with 2aux, that gets it down to 6 hours, but the duration and the length of that congestion is quite different. And kind of you can see that in the document, and it kind of summarizes that. The MLPA with 1aux, it's backing up still down to the I-5, I-405 split kind of area, kind of similar to what it does today, and it combines with other bottlenecks down the Rose Quarter, where the 2aux kind of focuses that congestion. And while it says it's 6 hours, it only backs up to about Marine Drive. So those are critical pieces to kind of see in the document and understand. Sam, looks like you have a question.
Well, I have a couple of questions. Ryan, I apologize if I missed this. So when I used to commute from Brush Prairie to Hillsboro, I commuted both ways at all hours and times. And my experience, I realized this is a 2045 projection, but currently the southbound is much tighter, meaning that if I go there at 5 o'clock in the morning, it's pretty much no congestion. But 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, by the time 10 o'clock rolls around, the congestion has cleared up again. Whereas northbound, congestion is all day throughout. It's way worse northbound. So I don't know what makes 2045 no build different because you have the southbound longer duration than the northbound. Because currently, in my opinion, today is flip. So my question really is, what does 2024 look like in the no build situation? Do we have that data, and did I miss it?
You did not miss it. We do not have it on this graphic. We have that information in the document, in the tech report. So I did mention it. I will cover it. Sorry, it's on the table. So it's 10 hours today. 2019 is kind of our existing conditions that we're using at a pre-COVID conditions. You are correct. It is more focused in the PM peak. So it's 7 hours today in the PM peak, and it's 3 hours in the AM peak. This does kind of get to volumes and kind of when that time period gets to. So it's about 6 to 9 a.m. is the AM congestion versus the afternoon congestion. It's kind of 1 to 8 p.m. as you're kind of, your experience is saying, and that's kind of what the data is showing. This prediction out to 2045 is predicting congestion lasting all day on the time periods. And that AM focus is kind of just pushing that even earlier, a little bit like you're saying, 5 a.m. So it's kind of getting that. These are roughly the same, 14, 16s, approximately the same, 15 hours kind of in both directions. That's about the max because the overnight hours, people just, the volumes do drop off. People don't go to work, people don't go to school, they're not having those discretionary trips. So this is pretty much lasting all day from 5 to 7 a.m. depending on direction, all the way till 9 p.m. in both conditions. So this is kind of maxing out, if you can kind of imagine that at the max amount of congestion that you can have for the no build condition. And then the MLPA 1-ox is showing the improvement with the program and the all multimodal improvements, and then the 2-ox is showing the difference there as well.
So if I could just summarize what you just said is that the no bill option in 2045, everything's plugged up, so it doesn't really matter because there's no more capacity. Whereas the MLPA 1 and MLPA 2 kind of replicates the situation we're seeing today. So this will get us back to where we are in 2024.
In terms of hours, yes. In terms of length of that congestion, they are different. So this graphic doesn't get to that information. If you get into the technical reports, we have these heat maps and kind of that are showing information, kind of that length of congestion is also in the executive summary has its information. So the distance of that queue is quite different between these scenarios. So do be sure to look at that and kind of understand that information when you're providing comments.
All right. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Yep. Lynn.
One of the things I think I recall from when we heard the presentations on the aux lanes, and you alluded to it, but I remember it as being really the big rock, is that we can't get much better southbound travel times just because of the congestion. And the program is not allowed to speculate on any improvements that might actually impact that. So because a lot of the congestion is outside of the program area, the program can't address it. But were there to be changes outside the program area, that could significantly, it would reduce, the bridge wouldn't be the choke point. It flows down, and if they reduce those choke points, it wouldn't back up. I'm being completely not eloquent, but I think you probably know what I'm trying to get at. Is that true, or did I just misremember that?
Nope, that is true. So if you go back one slide for me, Lisa, whoever's helping us here, that kind of gets to the travel time improvements here. So the southbound AM is kind of getting what Lynn's getting at. There is a small kind of improvement in travel times between this origin and destination barrier because there are other bottlenecks in the region, specifically south of the program area. The Rose Quarter project is being planned and improved and is included in the forecast of 2045, but the kind of bottleneck near the I-5, I-405 split still kind of remains in there. So that's kind of dampening the improvement. So here you can kind of see the travel time. If you go from North Vancouver at the I-5, I-205 interchange, all the way down to the I-5, I-405 split, this is kind of dampening that, improvement there in the southbound, but you can see the bigger improvement northbound. It's kind of showing that results. So,
and then
all this information.
One other follow-up that you didn't address, and that's regarding, I think what we called it was uncertainty time. I remember looking at the website where one of the real challenges is if I'm trying to get to Portland from Vancouver, I don't know whether to allow 1 hour or 2 hours because it's kind of volatile. And so it was like planning it. They had a name for it, but it made perfect sense. And anyway, do the bridge improvements, particularly if we don't have to have a lift bridge, my guess is that reduces significantly, but is that information that you have available, or maybe not at your fingertips?
I don't have at my fingertips. You're kind of getting at reliability. So there is kind of a estimated travel time, and you can kind of look at those heat maps. Like, oh, if you leave at 3 p.m. or 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., it's kind of Google Maps style. We all use Google Maps. You know, how long does it take me? So it has that information in there if you want to go from a point to point, so you can kind of see what time it's predicting. So that information is in there. Kind of ODOT does a summary of that, as what you're getting at, Lynn, of what is the expected travel time, and then, you know, if you have to do travel time reliability, what time do you have to leave? So that information is not in this document, but we have other information in here. So I'll keep going because I think I just got 2 more slides, and I know we got to get to Rebecca and others as well. So I think my last 2 slides are on transit. Thank you. So similar to auto travel times, now I'm going to talk about transit travel times. So we've studied transit travel times, both modes of transit. So we have light rail transit as well as express bus transit as part of the IBR program. This travel time pair is different than the other ones. I want to make sure everybody understands this travel time pair. So this travel time pair is from downtown Vancouver near Evergreen Boulevard to the Pioneer Courthouse Square in downtown Portland. This is a travel time pair. There's a multiple, I think we've got 3 or 4 travel time pairs that are included in the document. This one is a holdover from kind of the previous planning. So we wanted to have that information in here and cover that. So this transit travel times include the waiting time for transit as well as a 10-minute walk access that's kind of combined on either end of your transit trip. So as you can see here, the modified LPA for the light rail will take 47 minutes to get between that origin and destination pair. In both the 1-aux and 2-aux, it does not impact the travel time because it's on its own guideway. So the southbound express bus travel time is the one on the left there, kind of showing in orange. So the southbound travel time pair will increase to about 59 minutes versus 48 minutes compared to the no build. So the big reason here is what Lynn was kind of getting at. There's, you know, kind of a downstream bottleneck, or Sam was getting at as well. There's kind of a downstream bottleneck south of our project area. So this origin destination pair gets impacted a little bit more because we are improving the bridge. So you're kind of getting a little bit more flow down to that location, kind of where there's a bottleneck at it. But do note that the LRT travel time is still 47 minutes, so you won't be impacted by that downstream congestion on I-5. Versus then if you look at the northbound shows an improvement compared to the no build. So it reduces the travel time from 67 minutes the no build to 45 minutes with the modified LPA with 1-aux, down to 33 minutes with the modified LPA with 2-aux. So if you did the round trip travel time, southbound AM for express bus and northbound PM for express bus, this would be a 10 to 20% improvement compared to the no build alternative. Now I'll go to my last slide. Next, my last slide, I'm going to talk about transit ridership. So daily transit ridership increases almost 100% under the modified LPA and design options compared to the no build. You can see the numbers in there. The forecasts for transit ridership in 2045 for the no builds, 14,000, almost 15,000 trips. It increases almost to 29,000 with the modified LPA. These new riders are being partnered to the shift to transit because of the extension of light rail from the Expo Center to Evergreen, new park and ride lots, and improvements to the speed and frequency on express bus service crossing the river, as well as that variable rate tolling. And then the graphic on the right-hand side is passenger miles. It's kind of the distance people travel on transit. So it's kind of the transit vehicle miles traveled. This is a number of passenger miles occurring within transit exclusive right-of-way is one metric that gets at transit reliability. So the extension of the yellow line is kind of in its own from the new terminus at, from Expo to the new terminus near Evergreen is an exclusive right-of-way, as well as the new shoulders that are proposed on the IBR program would be reserved for express buses. So these both contribute to this large increase. So the modified LPA with 1-aux lane or 2-aux lane will be almost a 200% increase compared to the no build in passenger miles and exclusive right-of-way. And that was my last slide. As you can see, again, all the information has kind of tag on the bottom of these slides, kind of where you can find this information in the tech reports. And I'll pass it off, unless there are questions, I'll pass it off to Rebecca, who will continue along on other findings.
Thanks, Ryan. Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Steiner, and I'm on the IBR environmental team. I'll be discussing some of the long-term community findings of the draft supplemental environmental impact statement. The draft SCIS also looks at temporary construction impacts to each resource, which can be found in Chapter 3. Next slide. So the first topic I'll be talking about is economics. The modified LPA is expected to impact and benefit the economy in several ways. Benefits include improved freight mobility and faster travel times, which improves economic opportunities for everyone. However, impacts include a reduction in property tax revenue due to displacement of residential units and businesses. Additionally, the displacement of 36 businesses would impact approximately 616 jobs, and these numbers could increase depending on the design option. However, it is anticipated that project construction would result in additional economic benefits, such as an increase in employment and spending within the area. And so for every $1 billion in construction spent, we're expected to see approximately 5,500 direct jobs, such as construction jobs, and almost 11,000 indirect jobs, such as service providers and restaurant jobs. Next slide. Oh, I see there's a question.
Yeah, I'm interested. You cite a loss of jobs due to the businesses being displaced. Do you not assume that those businesses will be relocated and those employees still employed?
This is a conservative estimate, so I think we are assuming in case they can't be relocated or can't find another place to set up their business. But again, this is a worst case scenario. And so hopefully we can help them relocate and find a new location.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay. I'm going to move on to equity. So equity looks at specific populations within our program area. The equity priority communities are outlined in the draft SCIS and include Black, Indigenous, and people of color, or BIPOC, tribal governments, people with disabilities, communities with limited English proficiency, persons with lower income, houseless individuals and families, immigrants and refugees, young people and older adults. The equity analysis looked at the impact of travel time due to increased access to high-capacity transit and active transportation. High-capacity transit could be the light rail transit system, as well as the express bus on shoulder. We saw that equity priority communities saw reductions in travel time because of those alternative modes of transportation, and that also leads to an increased access to jobs due to those faster travel times. We understand that some residential displacements could impact some of our equity priority communities potentially more adversely than the general population. And in addition, tolling transportation costs and construction impacts could disproportionately impact equity priority communities. And now I'll pass it over to Emma Johnson to talk about some of the environmental findings.
Thanks, Rebecca. So I'm Emma Johnson, and along with Rebecca, I'm part of the IBR environmental team. So of the two topics that were selected for environment were climate change and ecosystems. So starting with climate change, and we know that this is really a top priority for our community. The draft EIS looks at impacts to climate through GHG emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, as well as potential changes to climate resiliency, meaning how well are we able to respond to and recover from climate impacts that are due to a changing climate. So the draft EIS provides calculations for a number of different metrics. Two really key ones for climate change are vehicle miles traveled and metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, which is a mouthful, but that's the common metric used to quantify greenhouse gas emissions. And in the report, those are provided for existing conditions, the no build, and the modified LPA. And existing is not included here, but GHG emissions are actually projected to decrease by 2045 under both the modified LPA and the no build, with a slightly bigger decrease under the modified LPA. and that is in large part due to an increase in electric vehicles as well as additional sources of decarbonized electricity, such as solar power. And then the draft EIS also includes information about, as I said, climate resiliency. So what are some of the design elements on the modified LPA that could help us respond to changes in the climate over the long term? And for ecosystems, so ecosystems refers to organisms as well as the habitat that supports them. And the draft SEIS looks at ecosystem resources within the program area, but it also looks more broadly geographically. So considering, salmon might pass through this area of the river, how would impacts the salmon affect orca downstream? So it looks at a much wider geographic area. And there are many aquatic and terrestrial resources in the program area, and that includes several that are threatened and endangered species, especially aquatic species. And so there are numerous federal, state, and local regulatory requirements that the program is going to be required to comply with. And that especially will pertain to impacts associated with construction in and over the Columbia River, because there are so many aquatic resources. And the program will be looking at minimizing impacts to ecosystems. And in addition to minimization measures, there's also going to need to be mitigation and habitat restoration. And that's part of the program's kind of larger effort to reduce the overall net impact of the program on our environment. And the final slide, I think, is just pointing to the draft SEIS talks to potential avoidance, minimization, and mitigation measures. And those are provided for each resource. So those measures are identified for economics, climate change, and so on. And as we continue to move forward in the NEPA process, the program is going to be continuing to look at ways to refine those lists to avoid and minimize the impacts as identified in the draft SEIS, and where adverse impacts cannot be avoided, looking at potential mitigation measures. And that is it for my slides, if there are any questions.
Okay, we've got Martha.
Okay, I wanted to ask about your greenhouse gas emissions slide. You said, if I understood you correctly, that the greenhouse gas emissions from vehicles traveling would be reduced because of electric vehicles, which is great. Then you said something about changing the way electricity is produced by having more solar projects. Could you say why the project would take credit for something that's happening outside of the project like that? I mean, the project itself isn't actually constructing any solar, right? So this is something else.
So the electric vehicles and the increased access to decarbonized electricity, those are true for both the no build and the modified LPA. So it's not something specific to the modified LPA.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Marcus?
Am I on? No, okay, I'm off mute. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. And what I was looking for in there is, like, has the program done any analysis on either racial identity or other kind of census stuff on the impacted businesses by the other census stuff, other identities, other impacts? Have you done anything specific to that, just to see? I heard you talking about the fish and the orcas. I just wanted to know about the people. That's all. Hello?
Hi, I'm here. So Chris Regan, environmental manager. I'm a phone a friend guy.
Okay.
Wonderful to be with you. I really appreciate bringing up the CAG every chance I get in a lot of different meetings. Marcus, I'm going to lean on Johnell a little bit as well. So the conversation about that that Emma went through was really more on the environmental side, and so the community impacts and what are the impacts to our businesses, especially our equity businesses, is definitely a focus that we've had in the EIS. And so what we're looking at really is, how do we make sure that the impact to the businesses associated with it does not create a disproportionate impact? And so we did focus specifically on those things, but that's a separate issue from what we're talking about with the ecosystems. And again, I'm the phone the friend, but I'm also going to ask Johnell. So our equity team did look into specifically, how did we look at the impacts and what the disproportional impact was? Johnell, anything you want to add to that?
And Marcus, I think you raised a good point, which is how the potentially impacted businesses, do we have additional analysis in terms of what the social economic demographics are? Is that sort of your question, Marcus? It's like
it is. I think of the construction businesses, which will have an immediate impact, but I don't know the makeup of the businesses near where all this is going to take place. But I know that most of our businesses in communities of color on both sides of the river are smaller businesses. So they can't weather some of I saw the same thing happen on Interstate Boulevard when they were building the TriMet there. A lot of those businesses went under because there was no mitigation plan for them. They were used to normal traffic, the traffic stopped, and it went away. And I don't even know the universe of businesses like that where the construction is planned, but it's still an important factor for me to consider, or for this group, I hope to consider on the front end.
And so we do have analysis on the disproportionate impact to businesses and to residences within the EIS. And kind of what we were talking about earlier is, as Greg mentioned, actually, we can do a search specific to those terms. I've done a couple of searches since this has started. I'm actually quite surprised at how well I can get through the document. There's a lot of pages. Sorry for the glamour shot here. I guess the light's coming in perfectly for me. But again, the other part of that is, we have these briefings and we have office hours. And so if you want to dive in and really talk about the specific impacts you're looking for, give us a call. We can help. We can walk through it with you. But you should be able to go through and see, the environmental impact statement does talk about specifically the disproportionate impact between businesses and residences in the program area.
Okay, I'll take a fresh look. Thanks a lot, Chris. I appreciate that.
Other questions, comments? Zachary.
Is now a good time to ask just some basic guidance comments, or should I hold off on kind of on commenting, or is this okay now?
If it's germane to the topic, please go for it.
Okay. So a couple questions that I've heard from community around just commenting is, a neighborhood association will say to me, should we all of our members who are interested, should they all individually send a letter, or should we write one letter and just put the neighborhood association? So this question of do we disagree, if we want our voice to have the most impact about this concern, should we be sending 50 individual letters that basically say the same thing? It's not a form letter, but it basically says the same thing, or just one? And I think the answer is send 50, but I want to make sure that's right.
I think even though I really love listening to Hannah because she brings such positive energy to our conversations, I can answer this. And Hannah, please jump in if there's extra, conversation. This is not a voting, so we're going to address every single issue as it comes up and make sure that it's part of the conversation, which means you don't need 50 comments saying the exact same thing. We hopefully will address that comment, Zachary. But if there are, specific perspectives that you want to add within that general concept, have you addressed this or that? Then I would say absolutely, provide that separate comments. We do not want to discourage anybody from commenting. So if you want to provide 50 comments, that's absolutely fine. But again, it's not a popularity contest. It's nothing like that. We are going to address, and we're going to say, these were the substantive issues that we saw. Here's how we address them. This is where you can see the changes that occurred or refinements based upon what we heard, for comments based on the analysis, based on, the impacts, or based on, possible solution to what was brought up in the comment.
Okay. I thought I heard Greg say something along the lines of like volume does matter though in maybe his last month. And I just want to confirm that's the case, because it is a lot easier to just write like one letter from an organization. But if it makes a difference, that it really demonstrates like, no, this is a big need for our community, then we can try and do the legwork to bring that out.
And again, from an NEPA perspective, you can talk about associations, you can talk about individuals. It really comes down to the substance of the issue. If we do receive a number of comments on a specific issue, absolutely we'll take the statistics. But the issue really comes down to the substance. And Greg, I saw you come back. So if you have anything else you want to add.
Yeah, so I think my comment last month was relative. If we get one person who says this issue X is important to me, then we get 100 people say issue Y is important to us, then you're going to naturally gravitate and say, okay, there's a lot of concern around issue Y, let's dig in and let's address it. We're still going to answer issue X, but issue Y may cause us to do a deeper dive.
Okay, that totally makes sense kind of naturally. And then a second question I had was, it was a specific one to the transit folks. So Ryan, maybe you want to answer this one, which was like people have asked questions around like future proofing people to me. And I'm like, I don't know, future proofing the transit project for future development of like the steel bridge to maybe a tunnel, or instead of just having 2-car transit, put to 3 or 4-car transit max lines. And I'm curious if this is like, from your perspective, Ryan, is this the time to comment about that? Like, I'm concerned that transit is not going to have enough ability to have capacity for the future unless we really build out that bridge today. Is this the place to do that? What does that maybe look like, Ryan?
So we are focused obviously on the transit that's focused on the IBR program. If you're worried about connections and other connections, I'm worried about the steel bridge, I'm worried about something else, you can put that comment in there. But we want to focus on what are we doing. Future proofing is a comment taken into consideration by the transit agencies for sure. Like they're planning for express bus expansion and as part of the C-Trans service, and TriMet's providing the yellow line extension, and they do this type of stuff and they know what they're doing. So there are other choke points or whatever other issues, like if you go from a 2-car train to a 3-car train, there's lots of other issues all throughout the system, right? So talk about future compatibilities, a fine comment to make sure it's understood. But we're focusing on what transit is being provided for the IBR program, and then how it relates to other agencies, C-Tran, TriMet service that they're providing. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Sam Kim.
Yeah, just piggybacking on Zach's question about do you want 50 comments on the same thing, or do you want one comment from a neighborhood association or group about the same thing? I agree, it's the substance that matters, but having gone through this before, it is a political process. And democracy and politics, Greg is right. If 1,000 people comment on something versus one person commenting on something, that's going to make the papers, right? And there will be some statistics. This is a one person's concern, it's 1,000 persons concern. So I agree with you that substance is what we should be looking at, but because of the democracy, a show of force on a particular viewpoint actually can influence decisions. So that's what I experienced in real life. Not theoretically correct, but that's how it happens a lot of times.
Yeah, no, thanks, Sam. I mean, we're not going to shy away from statistics around the comments that we've received. We also will not, ignore or fail to answer any comment that we've received. And so, provide the comments. We will respond. And what we've heard from in conversations with our federal agencies is this is not a popularity contest. It comes down to what are you asking for? What do we do with that? And we will provide our answers as appropriate. And again, the whole goal right now is we've done our job to define what we think should happen. We're asking the public now to help us refine analysis or specific solutions or the mitigation that's required. And so we really want to get those comments back. And so we do not want to discourage at any level any comments coming in. If you guys want to do that one at a time and have the mass blitz, we'll address them. If you want to focus in on, say, this is the substance and we all sign on to it, we'll address it. So, but I don't want to discredit what you said, Sam, and what you said, Zachary. I think you're right. Again, we'll do it either way.
Great. Well, thank you, environmental team. We need to move next to our community benefits presentation. I'd love to invite Emily to step forward, as well as Shannon, I believe. So Emily Thomas Peralta. Emily.
Great. Thanks so much. We could get our slides here. Great, thank you. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Emily Thomas Peralta, and we are a little bit crunched on time today, so I apologize in advance, but I'm going to kind of jam through these a little quickly. Next slide, please. And so we are here on behalf of the community benefits team to come back to this group. In the past, we had worked with you all and done some brainstorming to get your input on potential community benefits recommendations. We are now with the Community Benefits Advisory Group in our review refine stage. And so this chart is really just meant to show all of you the connection that CAG has to the work that Community Benefits Advisory Group is doing. And so as part of the review refine stage, we are bringing what has been on the table with the CBAG to this group for you all to get a good look at, to give us your input. We will take that input back to the CBAG, and that will be part of what goes into and informs their final recommendations that will then move forward to the program for consideration. These slides you all have received these, and so I'm going to move through this, but we are always happy to take any questions you have about the process and how CAG fits in. Next slide, please. All right, and so this category we're going to go through today is about avoid further harm, and essentially the focus here is just to make sure that instead of just looking at mitigations in the floor, we want to see how we can maybe go beyond that and avoid harm altogether, especially those the impacts that typically disproportionately affect our historically impacted and underserved communities. Next slide, please. And so I just for the sake of time, I really want to get to our discussion with you all because I think that's the most important part. So I'm not going to read each of these word for word, but we will get through them as best we can. So those that are on the table for your input here today are to have collaborative conversations with landowners and consulting tribes about maintaining access to the river for Native communities throughout the construction period. This one is really getting at working with Native communities to understand what does access mean and what's important to prioritize during construction so that they don't lose that. Another key piece here is about making sure that public transit services aren't completely interrupted, that there are some alternative routes that could be made available, that there are some mitigation efforts for those who maybe do alternative transportation like walking, rolling, biking, and making sure that there's good proactive communication so that folks understand what those alternatives are. Another is for contractors to perform foundation inspection videos for specific properties that are defined by the program as, that could potentially be impacted by construction activities. And that would really help establish baseline conditions for understanding what impacts may be caused by IBR construction. And another note I just want to share here is that many of the ones you'll see today, including these on this slide, are part of standard practices that DOTs usually incorporate into their work, as well as common requirements for contractors. Next slide, please. Another is ensuring that there is a proactive communication plan. So making sure that the public is informed of whatever potential impacts there could be, such as noise issues, route closures, impacts to the alternative, to different mobility paths to ensure that folks understand, what might be closed off and get that information in a timely manner. there is a specific call out here for working with homeless service providers to ensure that some of that outreach reaches those folks as well, as they are those who tend to be quite vulnerable. Another is establishing some sort of process for community members to share any concerns or any impacts that they're seeing during construction and find resources where they might be able to get some assistance. So basically being a resource center where folks can come to with whatever issues they may have. Next slide, please. Another piece is making sure that during the real estate process, which includes potentially eminent domain process, that there are considerations for language access, culturally specific services. Again, this is a very standard practice. Another is identifying funds for impacts to or mitigations resulting from construction. Another is making sure that there are some funds available that could potentially help the relocation or the housing needs of those who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness, and particularly those that may be impacted by construction or within the program area, as they would be quite vulnerable in that situation. And so this would be really the program working with local agencies and other jurisdictions to focus on outreach to those and help connect them to the right services. Next slide, please. Others are minimizing the impacts on small businesses. I heard some of that come up today, so that's really great. That's in alignment with what the community benefits group is thinking about. So making sure that, you know, if there are extended closures, how could some assistance be shared with small businesses? Another is to ensure that there is opportunities for trees that may be removed. How could they how could the replanting of those maybe happen earlier in the process so that there's some consideration for maturation? Next slide, please. So I jammed those so quickly, and I apologize for the squeeze on that. We definitely have shared these slides out with you and are happy to get your input here. And so I will pause with our prompt, which is, are these recommendations in line with what, you know, the CAG community values are from your perspective?
Go ahead and open it up. Thoughts, comments? Making sure I'm not missing anyone here.
And I know that I just threw a ton at you, so we'll work with
Dina.
the CAG team to take feedback.
Dina.
Are you talking about, does this align with the values for the information you just presented, or the presentation that we got before regarding all of the transportation and transit impacts, but no navigation impacts?
So this is more with the community benefits that the community benefits advisory group are putting on the table for the program to consider. It's really just these ones under this category that are really related to those mitigations and some of those findings are these that are on the table right now in line with the CAG values and what you all are hearing from community as what the needs could potentially be.
Thanks for the clarification.
Someone's got some thoughts on this.
Can you put the slides back up? Because it went so fast. I honestly didn't have a lot of time to process anything.
Totally understand that. And yeah, that's where I was mentioning, you know, our team will be sure to work with the CAG folks to make sure that, you know, if you folks want to take a look at these slides after the meeting, sit with them a little bit more and then get feedback to us, we'll work with them on how we will incorporate and collect that feedback from you all. If you can move to the next slide, I think that'd be more helpful.
Rena.
Yeah, we didn't have a chance to see the slides before the meeting, so there was no attachment by email. And kind of like throwing it at us and telling that they're in line with our values, I think in general they are. But I think some of the valuable participants that we also value are not included in the slides. So I kind of like do not know how to react. Because we are talking about businesses, we are talking about Native Americans, we are talking about homeless people, but we are not talking about people who actually live in the apartments. Or at least I didn't see them in the slide. So I'm kind of like, okay, so are we considering them and how they're going to be impacted if they're already living in the area? And they're living like all the time, not just during the day hours, but during night too.
Thank you.
It would be useful if we have the slides and we have kind of like group discussion internally, and then we can provide you the feedback, maybe at the next meeting, because I don't think in 10 minutes we can do it today.
Unfortunately, we won't have time for the next meeting to be where you all incorporate your feedback. So it is something that we can do, as Emily said.
We can do it by email. We can do it by
via
email. But we need to see the slides, and then we individually can provide you the input, and then you can gather and make the collective.
All right, I think that makes a lot of sense. So what we'll do is make sure the team circulates this and be sure folks have thoughts. Sit with the material as well as there'll be other opportunity. Emily, if you can kind of remind CAG, there'll be other opportunity to react to some of the other sections, but it is going to be important for folks to get material in advance as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We will have other opportunities with some of our other batches. So this will not be the last time. We'll be bringing more to you that the CBAG is working through to get your input before their final decision is made. Because we want to make sure that if you all do have thoughts and inputs, that we incorporate that into it. And I can really quickly speak to your question about those who are living in the program area. We did have a first batch of recommendations that we went through with the group in January, February, that we had to do some early decision making because they could potentially be part or be relevant to the environmental documents. And there were a few of those that spoke to, for example, monitoring for noise, dust levels, things like that for those that live within the program area to make sure that we're keeping track of those type of impacts. And I think another is that piece around the community resource and having some sort of place where folks, if they are facing those impacts, if they're having a need, if they're worried about, need a window replaced or something like that, that they can come to that resource and be connected with, some potential help for that.
Yeah, and Fabian did indicate and make sure if folks aren't receiving the material to get in contact with Fabian, but Fabian did say that it should have been attached to the calendar invite, the material as an attachment. So folks didn't get that. Let's make sure that we rectify that. Okay, more to come on this. We need to go to public comment now. If the team, well, first we'll talk about what's next. This is a lot of material. We're always striving for the right balance between not too much and just enough. And so we'll continue to work on that. But if we can get the slides up in terms of what's next, please. And then we'll go to public comment. Just a reminder, we have other meetings coming up. The Equity Advisory Group meeting is going to be on October 21st, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. They'll receive a similar presentation that you all received today. Then we'll have our next Community Benefits Advisory Group meeting, October 24th, 9:30 to 11:30. Now we'll invite public comments. Next slide, please. Next slide. Just a reminder, if you would like to make a live comment via phone, please dial 646-931-3860 or 408-638-0968. You'll want to remember to include the meeting ID number, which is 986-0940-5983. And remember to include the passcode, which is 701376. Please remember to dial *9 to raise your hand. I'll call on participants to provide a comment. You'll also want to remember to dial *6 to unmute yourself. Please provide your name and affiliation. We'll roughly have about 10 minutes for public comment. If we run out of time and you have not had a chance to speak, you can still provide comments after the meeting. Next slide, please. Reminder as to how you can submit public comment via written form. Fill out the comment form on the program website or email your comments to info@interstatebridge.org with CAG Public Comment in the subject line. You may also call 360-859-0494 for our Washingtonians, 503-897-9218 for our Oregonians, or our toll-free number, which is 1-888-503-6735. Please do state CAG Public Comment in your message. Written comments need to explicitly say CAG Public Comment in the subject line or in the body of the message for them to be identified and distributed to CAG members. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to advisory group members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of their next meeting. Next slide. So let's, team, do we have anyone ready to provide public comment?
Yes, looks like we have one individual.
Okay,
ready.
if we can admit that person, and then if we can get the clock ready to go. Hello, public commenter, are you with us?
Yes, is it my turn to go? I wasn't sure.
Yes, it's your turn. If you could please introduce yourself and we'll go ahead and start the clock now.
Sure. My name is Jay Amechi, and I am an organizer with the Just Crossing Alliance. And I just wanted to check in about something earlier. Can you hear me? Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Earlier you mentioned, people have been asking about real-time comments, and that's just not feasible, which makes sense on your part. But fortunately, we've sort of addressed that issue, and that we have a comment form. It's submitting directly to the IBR email address, and it's creating a public archive to encourage community dialogue, but it's still sending to that official email address. And I just wanted to see if any of the project staff or the program staff could confirm that these comments are being received. Because we've asked, but we've gotten sort of wishy-washy responses, so we're just curious about that.
Okay, well, thank you for your comment. Any other public commenters?
No one else at this time.
Okay. Great. Why don't we move forward with closing? First, we'll ask Administrator Johnson for closing comments, then we'll go to our co-chairs to close us out.
All right. Thank you, Johnell. Once again, this is a very critical time in the program for this, getting public comment. As far as a public commenter, we will look into that issue and have someone respond back. But getting public comment in, and we do follow the federal regulations on how these comments are handled. So, but please, as a reach out to the CAG members, talk to your organizations, to your network of folks, to have them participate. So that's all I have, and thank you for being here.
Great, thank you, Administrator Johnson. Next, we'll go to Co-Chair Lynn, and then go to Co-Chair Ed.
I'll make some comments, and then Zachary, I see that you have your hand up, but I just want to kind of do a little bit of a team huddle and say, boy, did we get a lot of really good information. And that's one of the advantages of serving on CAG is we got some really high level, high interest information. Hannah did a great summary of some of the public outreach. Ryan gave us all nuts and bolts that we were really kind of clamoring for in terms of safety, average trips for both people and vehicles, both now and in the future. Interesting information on travel time that we hadn't seen recently. So again, very curated, and thank you, Ryan, for that. And then the partnership between Rebecca and Emma to collaborate on community findings with regards to economics, equity, and the environment was also valuable. I appreciate everyone who responded saying, what is it you want to hear about? And I want to thank the program staff for really being open to and asking what it was that we wanted to hear about. And I thought all of our presenters really did a outstanding job. So much so that we were very actively engaged and we ran out of time. So Emily, special thanks to you for kind of racing through that content. I think we do have the slides, but one of the values is when we have someone presenting, it just seems to be a little more alive. So thank you for that. And I do appreciate the questions, and we can take a peek and provide email feedback in the future. But anyway, chock full meeting, lots of content, lots of good information. Again, I want to remind everyone, this is one of your call to action. Make sure that you're all of your contacts, both for the official groups that you're recognized and then any other groups that may wish to contact, because input does matter. And mostly we want our community to embrace this bridge. And the best way to embrace it is to take a look and provide input and feel like your voice makes a difference. So with that, I will pause my comments and go to Zachary. And then after that, Ed can send us home. So Zachary.
Awesome. Thank you, Lynn. I want to just note, I appreciated that comment from the commenter today, because that was actually a question, and thanks to Chris and David, some of the staff who have been working with me on how comments are received, because we had emailed about that idea of receipt by the IBR program saying, hey, we got your comment. And they had shared with me, so this is just information for everybody, they had shared with me that had not been turned on, but they have turned on the like, hey, we got your comment tool. So I just want to flag that it sounds like we need to double or triple check that to make sure that that receipt is going, like, hey, we got your comment tool is actually happening. So Greg, thank you for saying you would address that, because I have heard from people too saying like, I just don't know if they got it or not, that kind of thing. I had a totally separate quick question, which was, we had heard from a number of folks on this committee about some sort of a like virtual reality experience to like see what the bridge would actually feel like. And it's really hard when you're like, well, the bridge will be 280 feet wide or it'll be 60 feet tall or something. Like our brains as humans don't wrap our heads around that very well. And so my question was just like, can we get an update? Maybe not tonight because it's late, but maybe at the next meeting of like, is that going to happen? And I think people would really appreciate the power of like feeling it and also experiencing like, oh, if I walked up this ramp or if I go up this elevator, this is what, or if I walk along the waterfront, this is what it's going to feel like. So if there's some sort of an update we could get at the next month, that would be really cool.
And then Ed, can you take yourself off mute so we can hear those words of wisdom?
The word, my word of wisdom is remember to unmute, but but I figured that, I could just, you guys read lips. So but thank you also, everybody, all of the members and the presenters. This was a lot of information, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more to come, but very excellent. And thank you all for being here. And we look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. And let's just continue to keep up the good work. There is one thing I was in on. There was a conversation about, how much information do you present? And I was just thinking, if you go before a crowd and you shake 2 sheets, and then somebody else go before the crowd and shake 50 sheets, I think people are going to remember the 50 sheets. So if you guys have to come up with 50 sheets to shake, feel free to do it, because people will remember that. Or if you even have 2, but make sure you have 50 behind your back so you can come out and win. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening, and we'll see you next time around. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Appreciate it.
Thank you.